So this week of astrology is probably the most dynamically packed and active week of configurations that I've seen in a very long time. We start the week with this solar eclipse in Sagittarius, and then we finish out the week with Mercury and the Sun conjoining, Mercury entering the heart of the Sun, and 3 planets change signs in between. You know, this is going to be a whole new astrological world by the time we hit next week. Okay, I'm glad we're here. I'm glad you're here. This is a jam-packed week, so I'm going to move quite fast and just bang through a quite large number of configurations. So we start out the week with Mercury meeting the South Node in the 20th degree of Sagittarius there, and Mercury is in its own Egyptian term, so there's some strength from Mercury, but remember the South Node's a draining force. It really likes to suck the life out of a planet. What I think about here is that talking too much can sometimes kill the power of words, that the words we use when we overuse them, or if we're talking too much, people will just tune you out. They'll just not want to listen. Buttoning up a little bit, maybe not using as many words, and if you're going to deploy words, I think sometimes they're more powerful if we really pick our words wisely. Think about poetry here, you know, haikus. It's like 5 lines or something like this, 3-4 lines of poetry, even a couplet, a well-placed couplet. You know, the full effect can sometimes be felt even more with just a few words. You know, and sometimes truth here, we're in Sagittarius, can be something that's felt, it's imbibed or absorbed. It's not something we have to be so intellectual about and then jabbering on about. We can feel it and take it in. And this South Node Mercury transit in Mercury's term, I think, really calls that forth, of just absorbing what is there. Remember, these eclipse points bring in this other reality, these other levels of reality, and so I think we can absorb those with this Mercury South Node conjunction. Now, this is also in a trine to Mars, very, very close trine to Mars, and again, I like the theme of acting, not talking, not thinking, but acting, just getting into your rhythms. You know, and because this is eclipse season, maybe we're turning down new plans or new injections of ourselves into the world, but just getting into the rhythms of your daily life might be how this goes. What is your morning routine, you know, and just sometimes we don't need to think to do that. We just 1, 2, 3, we march through our morning routines. And this happens about 3 p.m. on the 14th of December here in Central Europe. Shortly after this moment, we do get the eclipse, the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse happening in Sagittarius about 3 hours later from the Mercury's meeting with the South Node there. And I've got a whole video about this. I encourage you to watch it. I really break down the chart and explore the symbolism, but just a quick summary. This is an eclipse that is really somewhat difficult. I mean, both benefic planets are averse to the eclipse sun, so there's no support there. And the eclipse sun is conjoined the fixed star Ras Alhague, which is the star of Ophiuchus or Asclepius the healer. So there may be a sense of our healing being obscured, or the sense of what medicines we need, that can be blocked off right now. This is the final eclipse of eclipse season, so we're done with eclipse season. I'll be talking more about how we time when the eclipse season is finished, but just know we're winding down. So if this second eclipse is a climax, in a way, definitely a climax because it's the total solar eclipse. We're now going to be escaping that energy and moving into something that's a little bit more stable and regularized, which is good news. So this is the same day. This is Monday, the day of the solar eclipse, about 10 o'clock Central Europe. Venus in Scorpio in its exile, debilitated in Scorpio, perfects a sextile to Jupiter in its fall, sign of fall, Capricorn. I like this transit. I like it as a kind of come down energy. It's a meetup here is how I'm thinking about this, a support group in a way. Both Venus and Jupiter are debilitated, so they're quite weak. They're not able to really express themselves how they naturally might want to. I think about the analogy, have you ever been commiserate with, is a great term for this commiseration. Commiseration is a really powerful force. I've been in times in life where I've been really hurting and struggling. At a job is a great way to think about this. Find those coworkers and you can talk and commiserate about how difficult a boss is or how unfair a company policy is. There's great relief in those meetings, those water cooler meetings or those lunchtime meetings where you can get things off your chest. That's how I see this sextile. There's a real spark of relief here to describe our difficulty. Throwing out another delineation, you might think about reminiscing about the past, or this kind of future reminiscence, right? We remember the future. This is a Philip K. Dick idea. Calling to mind lovely things, that's Venus. Beauty, that's Venus. Joy, that can be Jupiter. Abundance, that's Jupiter. And so with this sextile meeting, when there's a difficult eclipse energy that's still palpable, use the time to project into the past and future. Remember the past, feel the energy and the emotion in the body right now, and then kind of send it into the future as a way to set ourselves up for when later, even in the week, this whole energy is going to change with Jupiter and Venus. They both get upgrades this week. This is part of the dynamic shift. A big theme of this week is that the hope planets, Jupiter and Venus, move into signs where they're not as challenged. And so I think by the time we get to Sunday, we're really going to be feeling a sense of relief and renewed hope, especially as eclipse season is dying down. All right, now we're into Tuesday morning, early Tuesday morning. We get that Mars-Mercury trine perfecting. So Mercury conjoins the South Node on Monday, then moves in to perfect the trine with Mars and Aries on Tuesday. It's a fire trine. Both planets are in those fire signs. By Egyptian term, that ancient division of the zodiac so popular amongst Hellenistic astrologers, both Mercury and Mars are the two planets with term dignity right now in the sky. So you get these rulers meeting and communicating and flowing with this trine aspect. So it's really a way to, I think, again, as eclipse season is abating somewhat, it's still fairly intense here, but we can start to do what that Mercury and Mars combination would like us to do. Planning for action, even particularizing our action and moving in on a regular schedule that's been made, considering the schedule, but then taking the action on the schedule. Or even now, because it's eclipse season, I'm thinking about this more as planning, planning for your so-called plan of attack for 2021. The phrase eclipse season is a good time for. I usually don't want to put anything after that. I don't think it's a good time for really anything except for doing what you have to do or resting and praying and meditating. But with this Mars-Mercury trine, there is maybe a sense that we can start to pivot towards the actions that we're going to be taking as this eclipse season dissipates. And maybe it's going to happen for you Tuesday. Maybe your life is just going to kind of expand here Tuesday this week with maybe analysis that you're going to have to do or actions you're going to have to take, even physical actions you can think about with Mars, getting into the dirt maybe. Maybe you're going to map out your garden and your house. Things like this could be Mercury-Mars, but it's a really sweet energy, both dignified by term. Right after this eclipse, we're still less than 24 hours out from the eclipse when this happens, but feel into that energy, and if it feels like you're getting green lights to do a little bit more, go for it. I really like letting transits happen. It's a general way to approach transits where we don't have to get worried about them. We just let them happen, and we sort of enter them with a trust and a knowing and a grace, and I think the right steps emerge. That's how life is. It's like we move through things and it's just clear sometimes what those next actions are. So maybe that's this flow, this trine flow is just getting into those next natural movements. Very supported with the Mercury-Mars trine here on Tuesday morning. So on the same day here, again, early in the week is quite active. Tuesday, in the afternoon, Central Europe, Venus will perfect an overcoming sextile to Saturn in Capricorn. This is that sweet, love that we all deserve for getting through our Saturn and Capricorn transit. Whatever part of your chart where that's turned your life around or restricted your life or taught you lessons in that area of life, this is the kiss. This is Venus kissing from that earlier position in the zodiac, overcoming Saturn, and giving us, I think, that really sweet spot here on Tuesday to think about how Saturn has benefited us. That's really how I like to think about Saturn transits. It's leaving a sign, but leaving something in that house or that sector of your chart that you can use for the next 30-year cycle. Venus gives us the sweet things Venus can do: singing, beauty, love, pleasure, kissing Saturn. And both these planets change signs this week. And I think I'm more focused on Saturn because it's a longer cycle here. Venus is art and singing. I always love the notion of singing if you like to sing. I love it. I love to sing even to myself. And art, if that's your form of expression, whatever you do that's beautiful, bring some of that here into this moment. And I think with this Venus sextile, we can sort of sing to Saturn here and maybe sing it through the ingress, which is going to happen. I know that sounds strange, but I think we can kind of, in a way, sing Saturn through this ingress. There's a martial edge to all of this as well. Venus is ruled by Mars in Aries, now newly direct and moving forward. Saturn is in a term of Mars, and Mars is in Aries. And so you might think about these two transitions, these last movements through these last degrees, the anaretic degree both of these planets are in, how we're using whatever tension or whatever emerges to filter into that martial action, Mars and Aries, get into life, your movement, your physical movement. And singing is quite like that too. Sometimes we have to move when we sing. I do think there can be martial singing. Armies sing, they chant, and they have the army band and they chant while they're marching. That might be how we can think about this. We're kind of singing as we move into this dynamic week and as the energy shifts. I mean, if you don't like to actually vocalize with your voice, just listen to those songs that lock you in to your productivity. I like ambient music when I do actually intense work like writing or astrological work. This might be time for more focused music to get into that workflow, the Saturnian side and that martial side of the discipline and then the effort and work. Remember, this is still only the day after the eclipse, Tuesday, so maybe it's just throwing on some tunes of praise as we honor the beauty of reality, the mystery of reality. Hours later, 3.5 hours later, Venus actually then does change signs. Venus enters Sagittarius. What a relief. You made it through Venus in Scorpio, Venus having to maybe get that martial edge for how it relates to people, which sometimes is contrary to the Venusian tendency to want to luxuriate. You're through that now. Now Venus comes in to bring its beauty, its pleasure, its celebration into this Jupiter-ruled sign. And remember, Venus and Jupiter had this, commiseration I was just referring to earlier in the week. That's now going to come really into full fruition, Venus being ruled by Jupiter. So they kind of met, and now they're able to execute those plans. So it's a build-up here with the Venus-Jupiter story building in the early parts of this week. The thing about later in the week, when Jupiter moves into Aquarius, Venus and Jupiter will be in a nice sign-based sextile. Neither of them are debilitated by sign anymore. So this is a sweet shift of energy into some nice benefic upgrades in terms of what they're able to do and accomplish, and then how they're able to communicate with each other. Really cool part of this week. Both of these planets can imply gifts and giving gifts, and they're now going to have this wonderful communication. So enjoy this season of giving and find someone you can give to. That's what I would really suggest with this. Look around. Who needs you right now? Just log onto social media. There's always links to send people money. Send some people some money. Then don't even just send them money. Say thank you. When you give, you add to the positive vibration of all reality. If everybody just gave, then you're going to get gifts. It's a flow of giving and receiving. And that's how life really is anyway. We all depend on each other. The other side of this is Venus is expansive here. Sagittarius is an expanding energy. So you might take risks for love here or for pleasure. This is sort of a risk-taking sign, Sagittarius. So maybe you get on that plane or get on that train or drive to meet that person that you maybe haven't seen, or that new budding love or that new relationship. It doesn't have to be romantic. Again, it could be a friend or reaching out to someone to make a connection. Venus wants to connect. Jupiter wants to expand those connections. And even about ideas or knowledge or truth, maybe people who think like you or people who are resonating with your practices. Get with them now. The one little bit of warning here, the South Node is still in Sagittarius. I wouldn't be afraid of it, but just know that there could be, again, it might not be flowing to its full robustness. You might have to deal with things that are blocked. So we hit Thursday, early morning here, Central Europe, 17 December. It's about 6 a.m. where I am. This is it. This is going to be the party. If you're in America, you will have this Wednesday evening. This is when Saturn finally ingresses into Aquarius. It's going to be awesome, because Saturn is done, like I mentioned before, working through Capricorn, its night sect domicile. Saturn now moves into its day sect domicile. I love the night and day distinction when we talk about rulership. Think about daytime. We're out doing things. Most people, they're out working. Like where I am, there's construction workers in the daytime. People are going to their jobs in the daytime. The public transportation runs in the daytime. Day is when we go out and do things. I have to go out and go do shopping in the daytime. Everything closes at night. Night is about the interpersonal, about what we do when we return to our homes, the people that we live with in the homes. Saturn's lesson-giving austerity has been working through all of the night sect energy for the last 3 years. And think about what we've seen in 2020. The upheaval has been about the body. That's the moon. The moon rules the night sign, the night sect. It's a luminary of the night sect. Our home lives have all been completely rearranged with the policies that governments have put in place, where we're now more restricted in our homes, more we're inside. That's also what Saturn did when Saturn was in Capricorn, but now it shifts until, again, like I said, the day sect. This is about the outward feature of what Saturn's going to do. So I'm seeing this time, by the way, follow my Twitter. That's where I get really technical with charts, differently than I do in these videos. But this is now turning to air sign themes, which is Aquarius is an air sign, and day active air sign themes. So now we're dealing with technology, ideas, information, communication, rules, regulations, government. These are all the things that now Saturn gets to work with as its substrate. So I'm expecting really heavy duty changes in terms of the regulations. And with that North Node in Gemini, it's really going to expand out, I think, some big legal changes in the world, new reforms, new rules for everything. So look for that as Saturn moves into Aquarius. It will leave Aquarius in March 2023, so there's a lot of time here for Saturn to do work with new governments, new rules, new structures. And then the one other thing I'll say here is that the Mars-Saturn sign-based square is now over. We can rejoice. It's been since July. Mars in Aries, Saturn in Capricorn. That finishes temporarily with Saturn's ingress into Aquarius. It returns in early January when Mars enters Taurus. We'll have to deal with that final period, that 6-week period of this sign-based square. But we get a little bit of relief, and it's time for, again, the holiday season. So I like the benefics get an upgrade. Saturn and Mars aren't as hostile to each other. So it's a really nice seasonal time for giving and a pocket of relief here. Now we're on to Saturday, the 19th of December. Jupiter enters Aquarius, joining Saturn. So Saturn had a little bit of a jump on Jupiter here, about by 2 days into Aquarius, and this is Jupiter finishing its time in Capricorn, its sign of fall. Why is Jupiter falling in Capricorn? Well, Jupiter likes to expand, right? That's what its most fundamental nature is to expand things. Capricorn and Saturn, its fundamental nature is to restrict and isolate and cut off. And now that's over. So that's the good news. The reason why I think Jupiter is, even though Saturn still rules Aquarius, Jupiter does a little bit better there because remember, it's the activities of the daytime. And that's what Jupiter loves to do. It wants to be out in the day. That's when it can build the most and expand the most. You can see things, you can grow things. Sun comes in the daytime. Plants grow from the sun. That's all Jupiter, the growth. And I think with the significations of rules and governments and structures and technology, we're going to see Jupiter coming in for these first year of Saturn in Aquarius, really all of 2021, because Jupiter leaves Aquarius at the end of 2021, right at the end, Jupiter will enter Pisces. But we're going to see a real expansion of these new rules, regulations, and the technology. It really matches the North Node in Gemini cycle as well. And both the North Node and Jupiter will leave these air signs right around the same time at the end of 2021. You know, limits are going to expand. There might be stronger limitation, stronger regulation, but you know, Jupiter can be fun, it can be engaging, and so you get that engaged way that the limits can really empower us. That's one of the old psychological sayings. Boundaries, rules, even in relationship, can make everything more fun. Even games. That's why you open up a game, like a board game, there's pages of rules. You need to master those rules to play the game, or it's no fun. You have no Jupiter being fun in this case. So maybe we can use this Jupiter in Aquarius to bring some nice structured growth. Same day, shortly after this Jupiter ingress, this is the transit I'm picking this week for the best energy of the week. This is the moon just having ingressed into Pisces will apply to Venus and Sagittarius. Remember, now we have the benefics making that sign-based sextile with each other, and it's fairly close here by degree, it's separating, but we have this nice sextile, Venus and Jupiter, the moon applying to Venus, the moon being ruled by Jupiter that just got this dignity upgrade. But I love this moon, and if you can get the moon on the midheaven, really close to that midheaven degree, you're going to really have a nice chart here. It's the farthest away from eclipse season we are all week, right? This end of the week on Saturday. And this is the same moon sign of the Great Conjunction. So how I'm thinking about this moment on Saturday is we're really preparing for that special Great Conjunction moment. Maybe look Saturday night. Look up and see if you can see the single planet of Jupiter and Saturn, the double planet, they're coming together. Sunday night, the double planet. Look for Jupiter and Saturn making a double planet, because that's the last time in Central Europe we're going to have is the Sunday night visibility of that double planet. And then the final transit of the week is Mercury meeting the Sun in Sagittarius in the 29th degree of Sagittarius. And so we end this week with a fire cazimi. Cazimi is just a sun conjunction with any planet, and we also say in the heart of the sun. There's different terms for it, but Mercury coming right into that cazimi, that fire cazimi. I think this is going to be a wonderful end of the week. This is one candidate for getting kind of woken up out of eclipse season. I'm thinking here about smelling salts. You know, if you're kind of dazed, they'll put those smelling salts, you wake right up. And I think this will be a jolt of the mind, a jolt of the intellect, a jolt of the thinking capacity. Enjoy this Sunday moment. Maybe it's time to get a little bit more robust with some writing. If you've got a writing project, if you're working on any kind of blogs or novels or whatever you're doing with that, maybe scheduling a time to analyze numbers or think about that side of life. Remember, this cazimi happens now with Jupiter in such an improved condition. And so all the Sagittarius placements get this upgrade because their ruler got an upgrade. And so I think it really takes that edge off of the fanaticism, off of the lost knowledge that maybe we had earlier in Mercury's transit in Sagittarius. And now I think we can come into a little bit more of a applied and functional mercurial energy. Actually, it's only about 2021 is about 11 days away from this perfect. So we might want to even think about 2021 planning at this point, getting into that next phase. Now, eclipse season, that some people would say, I tend to like this. You know, it finishes when the moon leaves Sagittarius, maybe. It finishes when the moon makes that next syzygy. So that full moon in Cancer is really going to be the eclipse season finish in terms of how I look at it. A lot of energy this week, and I don't think we're going to get really a rest. Even this last week being in the window between eclipses felt quite energized. I think it has to do with Mars moving forward now, Mars being in Aries and strong, and then ruling by term Saturn and Jupiter. It's really created a kind of a haywire or more of a kind of out of control sense of eclipse season, because it brings the martial fire action side into what's being eclipsed during this tunnel period. So I think that'll continue again into the beginning of next week. But by the end of that week, man, that benefic upgrade, aren't you excited about that? The Venus Jupiter sign-based sextile and all the Sagittarius and Pisces placements getting relief now. Wow, I'm excited about it. So let's get the first card. Let's just see what other symbols we can get here. First card is Two of Spades. First decan of Libra. This might be peace. You've seen, I think the Crowley deck calls this peace. I like the idea of arrangement, making an agreement or an arrangement with someone as a way to resolve conflict. That's how I would read this card. Remember, the air element here is about sometimes the dotted line and getting our words right and having someone understand the words we're saying, and then an acknowledgement of that understanding. That can be the kind of agreeable nature that this card can call forth. It's a moon-ruled decan, that first decan of Libra. So I think this tells us that the moon can be quite important. Remember this week, the first Aquarius moon where Saturn is there with the moon. So it's not this week until the moon hits Pisces, like I was saying, that we really feel that fresh lunar energy. Maybe this is what this card's pointing us to. And I also think this can be about the reflection I was describing earlier in this talk, that we can look at when that Venus-Saturn sextile perfects. How has your life changed with the Saturn transit? Because the moon rules Capricorn by triplicity, right? Capricorn's an earth sign. And so the night triplicity ruler is the moon, and the moon is the home. And I just think that the Capricorn element of that restriction in our home life, and how Saturn has kind of done an upheaval here, and collectively we can think about it too. If the earth is our home, this Saturn transit through Capricorn has really changed the home of the planet. You know, everything is quite different now from December 2017 in terms of where you can move on the planet even, and what are the risks of traveling to different places. So that is really what I would think I would reflect on here, actually, is like how this global change of the home of the planet has really altered and shifted. But that Piscean moon is, I think, what this points to as well. And this is in a Libra, so maybe we also, again, underscoring the improvement of Venus's condition during this week. All right, let's get the second card. Let's see what the second card can tell us. Usually I like to ruminate on tarot or talk some kind of philosophy, but this week I don't really know what else I could say about that other than the energy of this week, actually, and this last week, and then into this transition into this week. I've been really busy. I've been extremely busy. That's been what my eclipse story has been about, just if you're curious. All right, so let's get that second card now. Here, just try to maybe slow down. Get this final card. Okay, that is, okay, the Devil. Le Diable. What do you think? Why wouldn't, this is Capricorn. So this is just, again, the same theme, you know, and look at the Devil card. I love it. Look how Capricorn can restrict. The Devil has got these two people in thrall to it and kind of in chains. That's how Capricorn can feel. That's how Saturn can feel. It is that planet of keeping us locked in. And I think this is two things. One, it underscores that reflective feature I've been talking about several times already about the Saturn and Capricorn transit, and now that's ending. But I do think that it can, we need to consider just how much of the chains, like I said, the restrictions that we have in our lives, how much are we carrying that into Saturn now moving into Aquarius? And in the Tarot, this is the 15th trump. Capricorn is the devil, 15th. 16th is the Tower, that's Mars. And so a lot of traditions, or some traditions, talk about these two people in captivity getting blown out of the Tower from a martial moment. And then the next card, though, is the Star. That is Aquarius in the Tarot. And so the devil and the star are connected because those are both Saturn-ruled signs. I think that because this is in the future position, I'm really thinking that we might consider just what's that thing that we need to break out of now as we get into the Star moment. The Star is a really beautiful card. It's that grounding, and there's a kneeling onto the earth, and then looking at that big star. Maybe that's the double conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. But we're moving into the Aquarian moment. Think about, what are you bound to? What's held you back during this Capricorn transit? And what would you like if you could do anything? If you could zap a wand and change all of reality, what would be your Mars freedom moment to get you into that more unrestricted place? That's what I would consider with this. And you know, don't beat yourself up, but I mean, just what is something you feel like you could change, that if I didn't have to have this, then my life could be this. Sometimes it's good to just play around with that phrase. I find too, sometimes it's the hidden side of this is that the things that we're bound by are actually trying to teach us something. So this also might be asking us to give deference to the limits, the things that we think are blocking us. Let's go into that actually to learn a little bit more about why and how they're blocking us. And sometimes that can provoke or inject a bit of freedom. So, all right, that's the tarot reading. That's the weekly astrology. Have a wonderful week ahead. Really enjoy the lovely new energy coming in. You can always book readings with me on my website, sjanderson144.com. Tarot readings, astrology readings. Click here to schedule a reading right at the top, and I will see you next week. Have a great week ahead.